Hi, everyone. My name is Chad Van Handel, Chief Lending Officer at Unison Credit Union. Welcome to another episode of the Utalk podcast, Real Estate Edition. Today, we've got Joe Gracyalny in the studio. We're going to talk a little bit about Joe's career. He started real estate in 2018, and since then, he's really carved a niche into the duplex area. Previously worked as an educator, so it's going to be a very exciting story to talk through. So without further ado, let's welcome Joe Gracyalny to the studio.
Thanks, Chad. I appreciate you having me.
Thank you. We're excited to have you. Again, I think the best place to start is just kind of tell us how you got started in real estate and where that bug started.
Oh, the bug and the itch, yeah. I got to give credit to my brother, Kevin. He's actually the youngest. I'm one of five. And, you know, for being the youngest in the family, man, he's really kind of led by example. And he bought me the book Rich Dad Poor Dad for Christmas back in like 2016 or so. And it sat on my shelf for a month or two. And then I read it. And for those that have read Rich Dad Poor Dad out there, it's one of those where you're like, man, you can't quit your job fast enough and go from there. And I love teaching. I miss it. I miss the student staff, coaching as well and all that. But that's what really got me started in the whole idea of some passive income, investing, and making my money work for me rather than me only working for my money.
Yeah, and we've talked about before, but this book is one that I think everybody kind of reads or at least, you know, finds early on. And it opens a lot of people's eyes to what, you know, real estate and passive income could be all about. So it's 2018, or when did you kind of when did you start reading that book, or how long did you?
So after read that book, basically beginning of 17 then or so, and then by the end of the year, I want to say it was October or so, that's when we grabbed our first deal, which I remember the conversation specifically. My brother and I were like, hey, let's get into business together. We're going to be buy and hold guys. Yeah. So what do buy and hold guys do? We buy a flip property instead off a wholesaler, and then we did that and had our bit of headaches with that and mistakes that we made, but that was the most educational and like tuition payment project that we did that taught us so many things, and we've been able to take those and leverage those mistakes into life lessons. And shortly thereafter, I want to say about 3-4 months after that one, though, we ended up grabbing our first duplex, and we grabbed a number of them following. And
let's step back, unpack that first property. So you're thinking you're going to be buy and hold investors, and you find this property at probably a pretty good deal potentially, and so it needed some work, or what all kind of went into that decision?
It needed quite a bit of work, and it was in De Pere, which is a desirable area. We then basically made an offer on it, and it was one of those where we trusted our numbers. What our main issue that we didn't do is we didn't get like more bids on it. And with a wholesale type property, it's usually a little bit more of you've got 3 days of a heads up or 4 days of a heads up on a property. Then you've got 24 hours to submit your offer, and it's a little bit more of a rush process. And basically, we just didn't get enough information, and I didn't walk the property. And a few mistakes, like one big one that I'd throw out is like, if the stairwell is almost vertical, you're gonna lose a lot of people that would want to buy the property because you're people with rough knees and hips automatically out. Families, they don't want to go chasing their kids up the stairs, that type of thing. And so we didn't put I wasn't up there in the area. I was teaching down in Dubuque, Iowa, so I wasn't able to view the property. Basically, we just didn't get a good enough handle on the situation, and then a number of things just went over cost of materials, time, and everything else. So we changed a little bit of what we were going to do with the project.
Do you recommend somebody that's just getting into it work with a wholesale type of a deal, or maybe work with the MLS so they've got a little bit of more of an opportunity to do that walkthrough?
And that's a great question. For someone who's brand new, thinking about getting into their first deal, I would highly recommend basically one of two options. Get yourself first one would be live in the project yourself. If folks out there have ever heard of a term called house hacking, it's very popular through Bigger Pockets, and that's the number one route I would throw out. So you live in a duplex one side, rent out the other side, and it gives you a great taste of what it might be like to be a little bit more of a landlord. And on top of it, you get to cut out your largest expense, which is your housing expense, which roughly for numbers is about a third of a lot of people's budget.
Yeah.
So if you can give yourself an automatic 30% savings, it's a great strategy in order to be able to really, change your stars possibly for your future.
And you can see the property firsthand, what the challenges are. You can work on it a little bit as you're living in it, and could be in a little bit of a construction zone, but again, you can do what you want to do. You can see the functionality of the house and things like that.
And you're going to get preferred financing, and there's many other things that go into it, and we can dive more in depth on that if you want. But that's going to be the first strategy that I would roll with. If you wanted, let's say you're happy with a single family life or you wanted to stay renting, you can always just find a super experienced agent or another experienced investor and kind of have them walk you through and get something just right off the MLS. And you can, even these days, and it's a little bit tougher, but you can still find deals.
I was going to say, that's a good strategy in a normal market. Obviously,
It's
these
a little
days,
tougher,
it seems like the contingencies and any of the inspections are starting to go out the window a little bit. But yeah, I think that's definitely good advice. So did you guys have contractors lined up for this property, or were you guys ready to just roll your sleeves up and get to work on it?
So we don't do much of the work ourselves. We hire most of it out. And that's one where if I could go back and give Joe advice back then, it would have been build your team first and then take on the project. And that's where finding someone who has done deals before, a more experienced investor, and we listen to a lot of podcasts, but building out that team. So having, let's pick 3. You got your lender, someone like Chad. Then you've got your contractors, and you've got your agent. Between the 3 of those, you can really put yourself in a great position, and everything else should fall into place after that. We should have had just maybe a couple more options because contractors are busy, and if they have a big project going on and they can't get to it for a couple weeks, which we found out with a number of them, or a couple months thereof, or it's a bigger project than they want, it's tough sometimes to get a new person in there, trust them, and that type of thing.
Yep. And then that contractor, do they have a pretty wide breadth that they could take a big chunk of the property, or did you have other subcontractors that were coming in to do some of the other stuff?
They took on quite a bit of it. They subcontracted a few things, and we actually would have sold. There was a crawl space, no basement, and there was water that came in there, and we had an accepted offer, and that scared the potential buyer out, and we tried to negotiate that a little bit, and then it just ended up sitting longer, and then that wetness ended up getting into the floors a little bit, and then it's a number of things that then kind of snowballed. But having other contractors would have been, and not just we're happy with our contractor, but more options would have been best to give us a better idea of what the project entailed.
Sure. And then financing, did you guys have that lined up, or how did you guys tackle the financing?
We hard moneyed it, which for folks that don't know, hard money is basically you're getting just a loan from a company. If you've ever heard of private money, it's kind of like that, but they're more like a company. So we had an agreement with them for a 6-month term, and we built that into our costs, and that was a great avenue for us for flexibility. And we just went through hard money on that one to start, and then we rolled it into a more of a traditional.
Yeah, and I think people can get scared with the interest rate and the points and things like that, but if you build it into your cost, and it can be a great option to get started on a project. And so did it go 6 months, or you were able to get that out in time? And
we were able to get in and out of that one, and then rolled it in. And actually, now thinking about this, we've got some great hard money folks up here, and this goes to a lot of different relationships, but not being afraid to ask them for a little bit more help or lean on them more. People can't read minds, right? So if I would have said, hey, these are some challenges that we're coming across, what would you recommend? Tony, Jeff, or anybody that we're working with could have probably, and they definitely would have helped out more and given some more advice and things like that, maybe even walk the property more, and that might have helped us more as a first timer. We're leaning on some of the people that we know and like and trust.
Right. Was there any chance to just hold on to the property and turn it into a rental, or were you just kind of looking to get out of it and move on?
Great question. And if you're ever getting into a property, having more than one exit strategy is going to be good. And we could have held it as a rental, but we didn't think it was quite going to rent. Our projected rent on it wasn't great, and it was going to be about a break-even property. Being buy and hold guys for that, we were like, well, if we weren't going to hold the property, we wanted it for Now, obviously, with everything blowing up now, it's like I wish we would have held it as a rental because it'd probably sell, like crazy right now. But we just didn't want to break even property, so we just wanted to get rid of it, and we ended up getting an accepted offer on it, VA loan, good veteran, and they got into the property. We fixed up the floors and everything, so it was looking nice by the time we got out of it.
Great. How was the legal structure? So was it was you and your brother on this deal? Did you guys have an LLC or?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, we started up an LLC, which is actually super easy to do. And then a lot of newer folks get hung up on the whole LLC. Do I leave in my personal name? And I would say just get started. It doesn't really matter. The name of the LLC is not as important, stuff like that. But it is always beneficial to have it in an LLC just for a little bit of legal protections and tax benefits. But yeah, we set one up quick and easy, and that's how we got into it. Was with an LLC.
Any challenges being in that you were working with family? Did you guys kind of step on each other's toes a little bit, or did you have the roles pretty well established going in?
Yeah, we both being newer, we called each other a lot, and I've got a great relationship with my brother and family in general, so that made things a lot easier. And I know I've heard other horror stories, I guess you could say, people getting into business with family, and you just got to really be able to trust them and get to know them. And I'm lucky enough to be able to have a brother that I could trust with really just about any dollar amount or situation. Sure. He's going to do the right thing.
No, that's great. I want to go back to the beginning story, though. So you read the book, and it was, hey, we're ready to go. Pretty short time for you to jump right in. What got you to make the first step and get going?
Well, for those, I'd highly recommend this podcast that's out there. It's called Bigger Pockets. At the time, they were only in the real estate realm for real estate investing. They now have branched out, and they have like 4 different podcasts. Sure. So they actually have a beginner's podcast that I'd recommend. They've got a business one. They've got one just about money. And then their original, which is the Brandon Turner and David Green now run it. I listened to every single podcast. I think it was 1 through 170, give or take, twice.
Nice.
So I spent analysis paralysis kind of thing. But basically, I get done teaching, coaching, whatever it was, and I would be listening to that podcast.
Great.
Picking up as much information as I could. And my brother Kevin was doing the same thing. And we got to the point where it's like, all right, it's time to just do our first deal. We just got to do it. and super thankful I did.
Yeah, no, that's great. Because, again, I think people can stew on it for years. And the market was still pretty hot in 2018. So it's easy to say that, prices are still high and we're going to wait for some softness before we jump in. So good for you guys to take that first step. Anybody in the family besides you and your brother that have gotten, you said you had other siblings, have they kind of jumped in as well, or?
Nobody else really for real estate, more home ownership. I think my brother Tony's got a little bit of an itch. So Tony, if you ever hear this, I'm calling you out here to get you up here to Green Bay. But no, just us two for the most part. We've got a uncle or two that's delved into it a little bit, but for immediate family, no, nobody else.
Good.
But they're all great and good stuff. We'll see if they want to jump in down the road. They're certainly invited.
So you get done with that first property, the flip. Let's go through the sale process. Did you have a bunch of offers that you could evaluate? How did that go for you? Was it listed for a long time?
For our selling piece of it?
Yeah, the first one that you sold, sorry.
We had it, we got that first offer actually fairly quickly. Like, that's where everything went pretty smoothly. Just then that water coming in, that's where it was a little bit of oh man. And then that really delayed things quite a bit, because then we had to come in. We toyed with whether to just repair a certain part of it, fix the whole thing, try to save the deal. And then we went down that decision-making path, I guess you could say. Then it sat for a little while after that, because like with anything else, if it's like been sitting for a while, that's not a good sign. Right. And then once that first one fell through, that started that snowball a little bit.
Okay. All right. And then moving on to, you get this first property under your belts. How quickly after that did you go into the second opportunity for you guys?
So after that, I would say maybe 3-4 months after the acquisition, that's when we grabbed our first duplex after that. And then we grabbed a handful of them pretty quickly, all within succession of each other.
Good.
So although that first one we spent a little bit of time on, like we moved into the buy and hold fairly quickly thereafter.
Good. And those were those MLS purchases, or did you find those off market?
Yeah, so the for all of our first ones, for the most part, they were MLS purchases where we walk the property, intended on doing some fix up, bring up the quality of the units, and then rent them out. And out of the projects that we have, the vast majority have come off the MLS.
Okay, good. Do you remember back? Were there tenants in the properties that you had to, that you took on? Did you have to raise the rent? How did that process go for you?
Absolutely. Every single property that we've acquired, they're currently rented, or if they're not, they're just a little beat up. Everything that we have acquired, if it's rented, is under rent substantially.
Yep.
And that's where I think it's a little bit of a headache for the current owner to be like, well, I have to do these repairs. I know I'm under rented, but I've been paying it off for 20 years. It's time. I'll just cut this property loose and go from there. And that's where we come in and provide that solution for the seller, where we'll come in, we'll fix it up.
Yep.
And a large amount of here's a good takeaway, I guess. A large number of the tenants that we've assumed have actually stayed and are comfortable with the rent increases because we're gonna fix up the paint, plank, everything else, address any concerns, that window that you've been asking about for the last 3 years and no one's addressed. We're gonna come in and be able to help with that. And I think that's a little bit of a breath of fresh air for folks.
Yeah, that's really good, because I think people get scared about, I don't want them to leave, because that tenant that you've got, I think is pretty valuable to some people as they're getting into it. So, helping people understand that transition can happen. You can raise the rents, and again, as long as you're a little bit more attentive to their needs, and they understand that now they've got somebody a little bit more active, quote unquote active, that's going to make sure they're taking care of what they got going on. Well, that's good. So so were you guys managing it personally then, or property management, or how does that work?
Yeah, we brought in property management, and we were using two different ones because we had properties in the Fox Valley area, Greater Appleton area, and then we had properties as well up in the Green Bay, Brown County area as well. So we just used two different ones depending on where they were at.
And that was right away?
Yeah.
Okay.
Pretty much right off the bat, and we really like the property management side of things because we both travel a little bit for work. I was out of town at the time, still in Dubuque, Iowa, so we couldn't really do too much. Sure. And the horror story, or the main objection you get for people that are like, I don't want to be fixing a toilet at 2 a.m. Right. I have heard that statement so many times. And I can tell you if you take one property for 1 year and then you extrapolate over the course of our 10 or so, like we've got 30 years worth or so of data, and that doesn't really happen. And going back to the example of house hacking, if you want to rent a property, live on one side, rent out the other, you're not going to get those phone calls, especially if you have a decent property. Yeah. Like, think how many times is your toilet actually broken? Like, I don't know. Maybe some people have some rough toilets out there, but I know my toilet's been working, thankfully. And the property management company just help solve that issue for the tenant, where if they do have an issue, they do have somebody they can call, and they have systems set up for that, and that's where they are providing a service that helps what I'm looking for. And I really like the property management style. If you're around, you've got a little bit more free time, that's a great way where you can make some savings and still provide a great service as well.
Yeah, I think that's another thing where people look at, I can save some money, but again, if you build that into your numbers, and you can make it work right away from that first property that you're looking to do, because again, like you said, you're building in the numbers, and you have other things that you can spend your time on too.
Absolutely. And to jump in on that, building your numbers, as long as you trust your numbers, you're good. And if you're unsure on those things, you can always, again, lean on those around you. You could ask someone like myself. You could ask for me, the hard money guys, contractors, experienced investors, and everybody is so willing to help around here. It's been I feel super blessed with the relationships and people that I've gotten to know.
How long did that take? Did you guys see, were you reaching out to people right away, or did it take you a little bit before you realized that we need these other mentors, we need some other people, this community to help us through?
Well, shame on me a little bit for that, where I wasn't forward enough thinking, where it's like, man, people do want to help and are genuinely helpful, even if they've got a blank number of units or they're doing this many projects. The vast majority of people want to help, and just putting myself in their shoes, that would have been something that would have helped more, where it took me a little bit longer, hard-headed, proud, whatever you want to call it, to not be like, hey, what am I doing wrong? Or, hey, how can I make this better? Or do you want to walk with me and just have a little fun today?
Yep.
And people would have jumped all over that. And I do that more so now, but
sure.
Yeah.
No, that's great. So then the properties, when you started building, buying the duplexes, was the plan, I mean, hold them forever? I mean, is that kind of the plan and the exit strategy right now?
Yeah, without getting into tax stuff too much, basically holding for 15 to 30 years and hold those properties long term, and then be able to use them as leverage into other properties as we pay them down a little bit and stuff like that. And that's the great thing about real estate investing, is there's so many different areas and routes that you can go. There's no one path that's perfect or works for everybody. But yeah, we plan on growing and continuing on that path and building up a little bit more and making it a larger and larger percentage of my day-to-day operations.
Sure.
Yeah.
So between you and your brother right now, do you guys have good roles kind of set up? Is there one that does more of the financial side, or one that does more of the property management side, or how do you guys delineate that?
It's actually been pretty darn hands-off. Property management has made it easy for that, where we get basically the monthly report that comes in, and we still use 2 different property management companies. We are able to review that, and we just have a very open relationship, where if something jumps up and it needs to be addressed, we just hit it right then, right there. Right. I live with him, which really helps. If I didn't live with him, it'd probably be like a weekly call at this time, where we hash stuff out, and there's still text and call communication. For roles, we just kind of handle whatever it is. Do you want this? Do I want it? Sure. And then we're just very open and communicative, and Kevin's been great with that, and it's just made it easy. Good.
What about the financial side? So you're getting reports from your property management, and then basically just feed it into, are you using QuickBooks, or how are you guys kind of consolidating that information?
Yeah, they basically spit it on out, and we basically just are able to send that right over to the accountant and go from there. But the property management company does a lot of that work for us. Good. Where I'm not. Kevin's more the accounting finance guy. He went to college for that. Just being an education major, that was not an area that I was strong at. And for me, that doesn't bring me a lot of energy or joy. I like analyze the numbers, but I don't like just crunching them and putting them in.
Yep.
So yeah, it's nice that it's just generated in a report for the most part, and just funnel it on over. Anything extra, we can kind of just create a little quick spreadsheet on it and fire it over as well.
Good.
But I've heard QuickBooks is the number one used one for people that are self-managing and stuff like that. That's what they're using.
All right, let's go back to the house hacking, I think, a little bit, because I do think that's something that for any new investors, it's a good way to do it. So how do you suggest people start that process? How do you get themselves, how do they wrap their head around, living next to their tenant and things like that?
It all depends on your comfort level and where you're at. There's a large number of people that I have sat down with, whether they're investing or not already, and they're very good with their hands. They can fix stuff up, and there's I was never that way, but there's people where I would say give yourself more credit, and you can do a heck of a lot more than you think you can. For those type of people, they can probably self-manage that and do that type of thing. But for anybody now, if you know nothing, you're not handsy, you're a person like me, you can just build that basic team factor, which it starts with a good real estate agent, and then I would say get a mentor or somebody who's got a bit of experience in investing. If you drive around just your local area, if you're here in the Greater Valley area, there are so many duplexes, and there are so many people that are doing this house hacking thing. And the great thing about podcasts, there's so much to draw from there. Basically, you just need someone who's going to help just direct you a little bit. I would love to help out with anybody who's out there. Feel free to, message me. I can give you my info at the end of the show, but reach out to somebody who can kind of guide you through that process a little bit. And basically, it's just going to be buying like a regular home. And then there are plenty of resources like the Fox Valley Apartment Association, your local Wisco RIAs, and they will have forms and stuff like that you can actually get, or recommendations on getting those. And usually those are free or at very little cost, like $5. And those are state approved, like lawyer approved, stuff like that. And that's going to put you in a great spot. And that's going to handle 90% of your objections probably. And from there, if you don't want to have to bring people, like let's say the one side is open on your duplex, property management companies can actually just fill that for you, and they don't have to even take it over, and they'll just do that for a flat fee. I mean, there's so many different solutions to any type of a house hacking problem that you might have. The biggest thing is just analyzing them, knowing what a good deal is. And for an actionable step that I might recommend people take is analyze one deal a day.
Right.
Find out what those metrics are, and I can share some rough ones quick, but like use 10% for your, and you can choose your own numbers obviously, but like 10% for repairs, 8% for vacancy, and you plug those in, and all you do is it spits out a number. If it cash flows after you move out, that might be a property to look at. And if you do just one of those every single day for a month, you've got 30 deals you've analyzed. And then you just extrapolate that, and eventually you'll find one where it's like, honey, or whether you're by yourself, this one makes sense, and I'm going to pull the trigger, and you have your agent, and you make an offer. And
I've seen, I've watched some of the bigger pockets webinars, and they've basically picked any market through the nation and just grabbed a property and crunched through the numbers and said, yeah, you think the market's tough, you think there's not deals out there, but again, they were able to find properties, and again, it was, like I said, it was just an example or just a demonstration, but again, it's getting that muscle, building that muscle of what do the numbers look like, and does this property fit kind of my parameters and how much I need to make on it. But really the house hack piece, you because you have to live somewhere, you're taking that expense out of the equation as well, which is kind of helping everything.
That's actually a really great recommendation. I totally forgot about the webinars off the top of my head. Yeah, Bigger Pockets, like they do such a great job with that. Brandon Turner will sit down and analyze so many deals, and they'll walk you through it, and then you can replay it, so you can just watch it again and again, and you can become very comfortable analyzing properties, at least with that system, in a week or two if you just really just do it once or twice a day.
And it doesn't need to be a duplex either. I mean, if you're living in a single family home, I mean, it's probably not your dream home, so you could easily move to another house and then, just rent out the house that you had previously occupied. And again, you know what the house is about, what potential repairs could be coming down the pike. And I think that's another strategy that people can employ, right?
100%. Like the single family route, what I would do if I were looking to buy a home right now is I would just find something that I could value add, something that's dated, or the square footage just isn't used efficiently. So knocking down a wall and opening up the kitchen, adding a bedroom, finishing the basement, anything like that that's going to boost the value of the home, finishing the bathrooms and kitchens. Especially if you're a little bit handy, you can really boost your net worth and learn and live by example that way. And then, like you said, rent it out afterwards. And you can repeat that a number of different times. And you're not even, pay on your personal residence, you don't pay taxes on improvements to your home. So even if you did move, you could really boost your net worth and do some big stuff there.
Yeah, and again, then from there, you could buy the house next door, or depending on what your neighborhood looks like at that point, you could have a nice little rental portfolio built right in a radius from where your first house was.
And if you've got people that you trust, you could even rent out a bedroom or two. You can always Airbnb it. There's a number of different strategies that you can use. Again, the great thing about real estate is there's no one direct line that you have to take.
Let's see. So moving on, let's go back a little bit to just your contracting team. So you have a couple people, or how's that built right now? How many contractors do you use, or how do you, when you buy a property and have some work that needs to be done, how do you decide who does the work on that?
So what I'd highly recommend people do, and this is exactly what we've done, is you just start a Google Doc sheet or sheets, and every time you use somebody, or every time someone's referred to you by someone that you trust, add them to that sheet. So you could have subcategories, you could do whatever. So you've got painters, you've got carpenters, you've got roof people. And every time someone's referred, I would just add them to that sheet. And then that way, if you have a painting, like something needs to be painted, you're out of town. You have 6 different painters that you can call. And for us, we use like a rating system. If we do use them, what we thought of them, price, and everything's kind of factored in. So me being a teacher, we use F through A, and there's pluses and minuses there. And you just try to find as many people that are B and hires as you can. Mm-hmm. And again, through recommendations from folks, basically every single person that's been recommended has been a B or higher. Okay. And that's made things a lot easier. So for us, it's been building that over the course of time. We started with a general contractor, and now we've built it out. And then our property management companies have their preferred vendors as well that they use. Mm-hmm. And they obviously use them for a reason. They do good quality work at a decent price, and that's been beneficial as well. So depending on which route you go, you can build it up yourself or use your property management company. And you probably know, folks out there, you probably know a lot more people than you realize. If you actually just went through your phone, like, oh yeah, this guy is a home builder. He can probably refer me to 60 different people.
Right. That's a good point. Going back to the accounting side, how long did it take for you guys to find that right accounting partner that can help you navigate the benefits and all that of real estate?
Yeah. We use Tina with Integrity, and she's right here in the area. And again, just a referred person through Wisco RIA, actually. Good. And she's been awesome, really knows her stuff. And again, just leaning on people that are around you. But that was a super easy find for us. And we try to get most people we work with now just through mutual friends.
Yeah, I think that can be an issue sometimes for finding the right person, both personality-wise and the cost-wise, but good for you guys to be able to land on somebody and, again, get a good referral in. How about the legal side? How'd you find, do you have somebody that you work with on that, and how's that process go for you?
Nobody one specific. We've had some one-off things. Thankfully, we, knocking on wood or whatever, we haven't had too much or anything go wrong, but again, do the right thing and everything from there. Again, we would just be using people that are associated with the RIA or the Fox Valley Apartment Association. They brought a number of people too. So it all would depend on what I'm looking for. Sure. If I'm looking for new docs, specific person that I might hit. If it was structuring a new LLC, if it was somebody slipped and fell, like whatever it might be, I've got probably 4 different people I think on our spreadsheet that we'd hit for that. And again, just assemble that list. That's going to really be helpful.
Good. Do you and your brother have like an operating agreement that just kind of tells how things would go in the worst case scenario?
Yeah, so we have a very basic one, I guess you could say. Like I have another one with my buddy, an ex-teacher friend of mine, Rob, down in Dubuque, Iowa. So ours is a little bit more in depth. I'm lucky enough to, again, have a great brother that I love and trust a lot. Yep. And so ours is pretty basic. If it was more of like a one-off situation or someone you don't know as well, that's where you want to get a lot more in depth. And I'd highly you got to have an operating agreement and spelling out everything in there. And that's where asking someone around you who like, what am I missing here and what should be in this? Getting that information is going to be really beneficial to help you out on that process.
So it sounds like you've had some pretty good success with the partnerships and things like that. I mean, would you recommend that's a way somebody can get into the business?
Yes, absolutely. You can, if you hear the term JV, it's like joint venture. You can do something on one single project, or you can be in business with somebody in a partnership. The number one piece of advice, I'm a big book reader, but the number one piece of advice I'd throw out is Extreme Ownership by Jocko Willink. That is a great one just for relationships in general and just how you're conducting yourself. And if both members of a business or party or any type of possible disagreement that would come up are operating off extreme ownership, it really helps out a lot. And I think that's a great spot to start for a mentality-wise to approach a business, is that ownership mentality.
And as we talked about, I mean, if you don't have the same trust level as family, you want to make sure you got your agreements all kind of buttoned up, because imagine having to you're in with your buddy and something happens and all of a sudden you're in business with his spouse or something like that, and everybody has their own different ideas on where the business could go from there. So I want to talk a little bit about Duplex Joe. So I do think this niche specialty is a good thing. How did that kind of get started, or how has that been working for you?
Yeah, I'll give Jason Lund a shout out here. He runs the Wisco RIA in Appleton, and man, I have gotten a whole lot of information from that place, mainly just due to the quality of people that he's got surrounding him there and helping out the cause. And college was great and everything else, but I have learned more from the people I've gotten to know in the Wisco-rias than college taught me at a far more affordable price.
Nice.
So I'm going to give that a shout out, and I stand behind that 100%. And Jason and I, we were sitting down for a lunch, and we were talking about what I should be focusing in and like where I should take my direction, because I'm one of those guys where I see something, I kind of want to chase it, and there's another thing now, like just how do I focus and narrow? And he basically just came down to, well, everybody's talking about buying homes or buying multifamily, and nobody just targets duplexes specifically. And then light bulb kind of went off, and I'm like, oh, well, I could be that guy. And I'm like, we have duplexes already. I like them a lot for a number of reasons, and I'll just become the duplex guy. And I should probably be, having a shirt on. Missed opportunity. Shame on me. But so just duplex Joe, and there's many different reasons where I kind of starting to take it more into a personal brand. It's because for me, it kind of starts with the duplex mentality, house hacking, and you can literally start and change your life over just buying a duplex. Mm-hmm. And until you kind of go through that process, it's one of those where light bulb kind of goes off, and those are my favorite moments, or light bulb moments. And the duplex is just such a great avenue for so many people. You don't have to own 100 doors or huge apartment complex. You can literally just add 2 or 3 duplexes, and your financial future will drastically change for the standard individual. Mm-hmm. You pay those off over the course of 20 to 30 years, and you have a lot of cash flow coming in. You've been able to provide a great spot for somebody to live that's secure, and it just helps so many areas of people's lives. I think that a duplex is a great spot to start. So that's the quick story behind the duplex side of things.
Are most of yours side by side or upper lower, or what types of duplexes? Mainly
we have upper lowers. I prefer side by sides. Mm-hmm. Those are more the newer construction type stuff, and it's for a reason. It feels a lot more like a single family home, and maybe a little less creaks, people up above, tap dancing on the top floor, which we haven't experienced any of that. Again, those are all the horror things you hear that are never really real. But we do mainly upper lowers, and a lot of our stuff is duplexes. Mm-hmm. And Kevin's delved into a few larger, fourplexes and up. But
yeah, I think that's the other thing. So do you think most of them started as a single family home and then over the years got kind of turned into a duplex, or what?
Yeah, some of those for sure. A few of them we had, and then I think some were just straight up designed as a duplex. But a lot of duplexes, especially ones that are a bit older, have been converted because people just see an opportunity to create an extra unit in space. And with the supply as low as it is right now, that's probably a thing that more and more people are looking into.
Mm-hmm. I know you guys don't do the property management side, but do you have issues with parking or anything like that with between tenants? Or are they able to work together pretty well?
Yeah. For me, and that's one of the biggest things I learned from our first. It's not a failed project because I learned so much from it, but that first flip, I guess you could say, that we learned so much from. Put yourself in your customer's shoes is a huge thing to do. You raised parking. Yeah, I won't buy anything now. I don't care what the numbers look like if it's just like a single drive, and they would have to communicate every single day, because that's just a pain point for them, and then they're going to want to move out, and it's going to cause so many issues. So I really try not to buy things that are choke points where parking would be a big one, the stairs. I really prefer to have some storage available on the property, whether it's a garage or in the basement. I really like laundry in unit, all those types of things. I really try to make sure that everything's there to make sure people are happy that are renting from us.
That's a good point to say, to put yourself in the tenant's shoes, because like you said, some things don't make sense initially until you to really kind of put yourself in that situation and say, would this make sense for me? Is this something that I could stand to live in? Do you have plans in terms of moving to bigger duplexes, or what's the range that you typically try to be in?
Yeah, a lot of our stuff, we acquire it in the Well, basically 70 to 110 area, and then we fix it up a little bit, and it'll praise out between 120 and like 180,
Okay.
that type of thing. That's been most of our stuff. A lot of the stuff that's, let's say you're buying it at 200 or so, it's normally not as distressed, or it doesn't need my type of service as much. So that's why we haven't hit as many of those. And I'm sure if I were living in LA, that'd be the stuff I'd be buying would be like $500,000, but I'm not having to deal with those problems. So that's been the majority of our stuff, but that's where we can come in for our model. It fits well, where we just add value, fix up the property, and make it just a better property for the tenant.
Do you have any suggestions for people that are looking at those 250 to 300 duplexes? I mean, have you run some numbers on those, trying to see if you can make them work? And
I have, I'm actually gonna be looking for a house hack for myself. Like, I've been living with my brother up here, and I've got 2 years of self-employed income now, so I'm ready to roll. And so I'll actually be getting my own house hack here, and I would like to buy something that is a little bit that I'd be comfortable holding for like 30 years, no matter what appreciation play and stuff like that, where that's going to be the next step for me. Is I'm going to be filling that out with my own personal residence.
Yep.
And then from there, if that works out well, I'll then try to blow that up a little bit more on our acquisition side. And yeah, for those types of projects, for a quick rule of thumb, I would just say always look to add value. It's likely going to be something where it's a little bit dated, or a tenant beat it up bad, or there's an eviction or something like that. And that's where you can come in and provide a little bit of value for that owner that's looking to sell.
Sure. I know, especially in this market today, I think you get into those bigger cost properties, and it's hard to make the numbers work. And so do you think most of these, are these mostly families that are living in these properties? Have you looked at kind of the college tenant type duplexes at all?
We mainly rent to single individuals or small families, because most of our units are between 1 and 3 bedrooms.
Okay.
So that's been our demographic. I have looked a little bit into college stuff, but that hasn't pulled at me, I guess you could say. So that's not an itch I have been scratching. Maybe it's because I was in college not that long ago, and I saw what a lot of college kids did to those residences. And obviously you can have parents sign on, but it's like 9-month leases, things like that. That's just not exactly in my demographic. But there are some people that provide that service and do a very good business that way.
Good. Let's spin a little bit back to the mentors question. So has it changed over the years? Have you found? I mean, I know you've got Wisco and some of the other communities that you've been involved in, but how have you kind of adjusted your mentors that you've been working with over the years?
Yeah, it's a great question. And if people are going to draw anything from this, from listening to me and my ramblings about properties and the things that get me excited, there's 2 main things, and one of them is the mentorship. And the other thing is just your identity, and identifying yourself as an investor is huge. Let's focus, to your question, more on the mentorship. We've all heard you're the average of the 5 people you're around. Right. And that's been the number one thing that I would say that has changed my trajectory in life, is the people that are around me. And finding good people, even if it's just one good person that you can sit down with weekly or once a month, and draw from their experience and really get to know them, that's going to really help you and move the ball and get that ball rolling a lot faster.
Sure.
The number one way, if you're like, well, how do I meet people, or what do I do? You probably know quite a few already. Simply just provide a valuable piece to them. If they're a little bit older, help them out with some tech side of things. Right. Maybe they have something they need. If they're an investor, they probably just need another project or another deal. So try to find a property that may work with their metrics and provide it to them. And a lot of people just want to help for free, and simply just to help you. And all you got to do is ask.
Oh, that's great. So again, I think this was good. We hit on a lot of great topics: house hacking, definitely the duplexes. Where can people find you, or what's the best place for people to reach out to you at?
Yeah, always feel free to reach out. Facebook is just my name, Joe Gracyalny. Good luck spelling that, but not. I'm sure it'll be in the show notes or something. The main spot where I'm most active these days, because I've been able to make it a lot more just about real estate, growth mindset, and stuff like that, has been on Instagram, and that's duplex_Joe. And you can always email me, duplexjoegreenbay at gmail.com. those would be spots there. I would love to help. I miss a little bit of that teaching and coaching stuff. So if you have any questions, feel free to reach out. And if I don't have the answer, I'd love to be able to set you up with somebody that does. And you can always find me at one of the Wisco RIA meetings, and we'll be there every month, or Fox Valley Apartment Association as well.
Well, this is great. Again, I appreciate you taking the time. I think people are going to get a lot of stuff from this episode. So thanks everyone for joining in, and we'll see you soon.